31 marathons in 31 days in 31 different cities. Even the thought of that challenge is daunting. Our guest today not only achieved it, but he achieved it as a double above the knee amputee, and he raised $250,000 for veteran charities while doing it. Our show is called Win and our channel is called Grit, but our guest today is a beacon of both. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Win, a show where we interview champions and trailblazers and ask questions to uncover and discover their championship traits for succeeding in sports, work, and life. Win is part of Grit, a pivotalmomentsmedia.com channel focused on breaking the stigma surrounding mental fitness in sports. Visit pivotalmomentsmedia.com for more episodes, content, and education on how we can tackle that challenge together. On July 22nd, 2010, Rob Jones, who served in the Marine Corps as a combat engineer, stepped on an IED in Afghanistan, resulting in a double above the knee amputation. 5 days later, Rob was in a Washington, D.C. hospital at the National Naval Medical Center, disconnected from the Marines and the mission. It was here that a new mission began for Rob. Rob was introduced to other amputees who helped them begin crafting a new path of perseverance, and that's exactly the path that Rob followed. Since his injury, Rob has completed in Paralympic doubles rowing, earning a bronze medal in the process. He has trekked across America on a bike, a journey which took 6 months, and as we said at the top of the episode, he successfully ran 31 marathons in 31 days in 2017. Today, Rob is a professional speaker, writer, philanthropist, and his journey is nothing short of incredible. And above all, he is an inspirational and ambassador of the human spirit. Rob, I think it goes without saying, it's an honor to have you here with us today. Thanks for being on Win.
Hey, I'm honored to be here. I really appreciate that very, very kind intro.
Oh,
great to have you, Rob.
I don't know if I'm worthy of it, but I really appreciate that.
You are more than worthy of it. In fact, I'll tell you what, man, when I was researching you, it was hard to cut that down to what I had. I was so
That's
much.
The problem I'm having. I'm writing a book right now. That's the problem I'm having with my book.
Right. Hey, listen. It's first off, it's a good. Like circumstances aside, it's a good problem to have when you're writing. But
yeah.
Your life is incredible to me, and the things that you have accomplished. And I want to.
Thank you.
My first question, and like this was the one that kept coming back to me when I was researching. I was watching a documentary about you, and this is one that kind of blew my mind. You said after the injury, you skipped, this is the quote, skipped all the doubting and being depressed and feeling sorry for myself. I just went straight to trying to achieve what I've always wanted to achieve, which is having a meaningful life.
Yeah.
And by the way, for those of you listening, when you watch this video, you can see Rob, I'm guessing days after the injury, like we're going to get going. You're just focused. I mean, ready to go. And you're clearly injured, right? So this is kind of a two-part question. One is I want to know how you define a meaningful life. I think that would be important for all of us to know. And I want to know what force was present that allowed you to conquer that adversity almost instantaneously, because the odds you're facing there are something probably most people will never have to deal with.
Right. So I'll answer the first question, obviously. Meaningful life. So my objective in life is to live an enjoyable life and a meaningful life.
That's awesome.
So I think that's pretty much everybody's. If you look at it from a 100,000-foot view, that's everybody. That's what everybody wants to do. They want to have a life that brings them enjoyment, and they want to, have that be meaningful as well to them. So the definition of that is going to be different for every person, obviously. Right. For me, a meaningful life just means making an impact, leaving the world a better place than I found it, both globally and within my own, personal network, my family, my friends. I want to have a meaningful impact on them as well. I want them to be made better by my existence and the things that I'm doing. So both on that small sphere, just the people in my environment, and then also I want to make a greater impact on the world that leaves it better off than I found it. So that's what I would define as meaningful.
Right. Brilliant.
And then enjoyment, for me is, there's a lot of different things that I could do that bring me joy, that, as exemplified by what you said in my intro. I enjoyed rowing. I enjoyed riding my bike across the country. I enjoyed doing the marathon challenge. So obviously physical endeavors are something that that I get a lot of enjoyment out
I
of.
just love how casually, yeah, I just did ride my bike across the country.
I like riding my bike a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that.
Parts of that I didn't enjoy. I mean, that's something that's important to remember too, is that you're not necessarily going to enjoy every single moment of an
Right.
enjoyable life either. I didn't necessarily enjoy going out and running a marathon every day for 31 days straight. I didn't enjoy
Right.
every single moment of that, but the overall, when I look back on it, I say I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, I want to say too, all of your marketing is robjonesjourney.com, right? And
Yeah,
you say enjoy the journey. I love that that's the way you branded it, right? Because you exemplify that, as you said, like everything you do is a journey. Anyway, look, back to you. I just wanted to say that because that's a big part of how you
yeah. I
present
mean,
yourself.
life is a journey, and then there's journeys within that life, and then there's journeys within those journeys. All the way down to the briefest of moments where you have to make a decision. That making that decision is a journey within itself. It's very short and brief,
Wow,
but
it's
it
true.
makes up, whether or not you decide to go eat a donut when you're on a diet, for example. That's a journey that you have to go on, come into the where you're going to fight the enemies that want you to go away from what you want for your life in that briefest of moments. And you have to have mentors that help you realize that not eating the donut is what you should do. Yeah, so there's a hero's journey within that briefest of moments, and
Wow.
all the these journeys that we go on in life are made up of those moments.
Never looked at it like that. That's a brilliant point. That, like, you're right. Like, there is a whole process about getting a donut. If I should do this, I shouldn't do this. I want it, but I don't want it. That's a great point.
Yeah, like it's you can fit the hero's journey down into a second.
Right.
And a lot of the times you're not necessarily going through all these decision points. You just make the decision, but all those factors kind of do come into play.
Right.
And the second question was what force kind of drove me forward in the 5 days that between the moment of my injury and waking up and
Yeah.
deciding to get
And
over
and
it.
and how old were you when this happened?
I think I was 20. Let's see, I joined the Marine Corps when I was 20, and then 24, 23,
Okay.
24, somewhere in there. I think
Right.
24. Um, Actually, on site of injury, after I was unconscious for about 20 seconds, when I woke up, I was under the impression, naively and misinformed, as an impression it was, but I was under the impression I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I assumed that my mom was going to have to take care of me like I was a little baby again. I wasn't going to be able to do anything by myself. I wasn't going to be able to do the things I enjoyed. So, and I was also high on morphine, and in shock. So at that point, I was actually asking people just to finish me off. I said, "Look, brother, just finish me off. I don't want to live like this. You know, just put a bullet through me." And obviously, they said no. And they carried me to a tank and they put me unconscious. But by the time I woke up in the hospital, next time I woke up was about, I think, 2 or 3 days later. I was in Germany, and that's where I kind of came to. I got the initial details about my injury, so double above knee amputee. But at that point, that's when I started to realize that even though I was barely cognizant, barely conscious, pumped full of Dilaudid, morphine, all these different painkillers, um, that's when I realized that I wasn't going to die. I was alive. My heart was going to continue to beat. My lungs were going to continue to breathe. And not only that, my mom was going to be crushed by, but when she had probably already heard about it, but she was going to be, really extremely distraught by my injury. And so I kind of came to the realization in that moment that what was best for my mom was for me to be okay moving forward, was for me to bounce back and recover from this injury and have a great life, even though I had this injury. And so I think that's the force that kind of drove me
Wow.
forward in the early days, was that I was doing this because it was what was best for my mom. And then I expanded that out as I got back. It's also what's best for the rest of my family. It's also what's best for my friends. It's also what's best for my fellow Marines that were back in Afghanistan. Because if they they were going to be checking up on me because they cared. So if they heard that I was struggling and I was all depressed and I was, not doing well, well, then they were going to be thinking about that maybe 1%, and then what they were doing 99%. But even that briefest of moments, where that briefest of like shifts of focus could lead to them not being all there when they needed to be, and could result in them getting hurt. And so I think the force was trying to do what was best for the people that I care about more than myself.
It's amazing, Rob. You have such an amazing story. You talked about, writing your book. Lee's written about 27 books. I've written two. I'll just tell you, my advice on that is put it all in there and let the editors do their job. So, that's what I found out to be the best. If you have a lot of material, put it in there. But
it's always good to have more material than you need.
yeah. So Lee can give that. Rob, you talk about like this journey you've been on, and the leadership lessons. And there's leadership lessons both when you were a Marine, and now there's leadership lessons as you've changed careers and doing this second part of your life. This transition, and Lee and I have both seen it, dealt with it, whether it's military or pro sports. I've seen it from both ends. This transition part is, always difficult for someone that, chooses a career path, whether you were only going to be a Marine for 4 years or 40 years, you still choose the career path. And then, all of a sudden the career path is, the decision was made for you.
Yeah.
Right. And you had to change it. No different than, a player on a team playing well. And the next thing you know, he gets or she gets cut. That's it. Right. It's over. So talk about the pillars of leadership that you've taken, from your military service, and you now applied, to your next career, and how people can use those pillars of leadership to continue to advance themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first one is, and the most important one for me, is the one that I just was talking about. And that is having a selfless attitude in everything that you do. I think I'm sure you'd probably agree that that's one of the top qualities of a good leader, is that they're doing things not for themselves, but for their team. And the people that
that's not always, today now. That's not, people are like, what's in it for me?
Right.
I mean, that's the ideal leader, I guess, is what I mean. Not necessarily all leaders.
And I think selfless leaders is the way to go. Like if somebody calls Lee, somebody calls you, somebody calls me, we pick up the phone. It doesn't matter. It's not like it's not like, is this a billable hour? Right. Like, right. Like but there's people that don't do that. Right. Like,
I guess what I'm saying is selflessness is the quality of a good leader.
Right.
There's plenty of leaders out there that aren't good. As we all know, that's why you have
a majority. I think a majority of leaders are not good. Yeah.
But so that would be probably the top one for me.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
And then secondly, we kind of already talked about this too, and that is recognizing that the mission continues regardless of what happens. So my mission for my life, from that 40,000 foot view, is that I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be meaningful. And I had a path towards that when I was in the Marine Corps. I loved being in the Marine Corps. I love being around Marines. I love deploying. I loved going and fighting terrorists and trying to kill them. And that brought me meaning. And that made a meaningful impact on the world. And it made a meaningful impact on the people around me. And so I had that path. But that path was then taken away when I stepped on the IED. I wasn't going to be able to deploy anymore. I could stay a Marine, but I wasn't going to be able to go fight terrorists in the same way. But I still had that mission of having an enjoyable life and having a meaningful life. So what I mean by the mission continues is that ultimate mission is always going to be there, regardless of whether or not I step on an IED and lose both my legs, or if I lose my eyesight, or if this opportunity gets taken away, or this path goes away. I still want to have a meaningful life and enjoyable life. So it's just a matter of finding that path. It's like if you were going to try and go from New York to LA, but or if you're going to try and go from, let's say, DC to Denver, and I-70 is closed down, well, you're just going to go find another road to get there. And there's millions of different roads that you can take and paths that you can take to get to that endpoint.
And I'm taking out just Rob, I'm taking that lesson out of there is, you're everybody that's listening to our show, you're telling them, continue to move forward, continue to go in that direction, continue to find your way.
Charlie Mike.
That's it. And that's exactly, I mean, it's so inspiring. It's exactly what you did. You're like, okay, listen, I'm gonna find a way. And I'm not sure even the way, but I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna go that direction.
And it might require you to change your perspective some.
Yeah.
So if I was too focused in on, if I thought that my mission was to be a Marine, then that could cause a problem. Or if I thought that my overall mission in life was to, deploy to Afghanistan, deploy to Iraq, et cetera, then that could cause a problem because that wasn't really going to be available to me anymore. So I had to take a step back and look a little bit higher level, and then take that step back, see everything from that 40,000 foot view, and then realize this is what I'm really trying to do. And then that Marine Corps path was just one way that I could do it. Wow. And then I just have to find a new way to do it. So yeah, if you're too focused in, then you do need to detach and take a step back at some point and kind of see things from that higher level.
Yeah, Rob, I think you're dropping some not gold nuggets. These
Truth
are like
bombs. Diamonds.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'll equate it to sports because that's an nature of our channel, but this is really more about life than sports. But as JB alluded to, we meet a lot of coaches that are on that journey, and they've lost, JB, let's just be honest, they've lost the sight of the mission. The mission becomes, I have to become the best coach. I have to get paid the most. I have to find this top level. And they start to miss the journey. And the journey could be anything from kids to professional sports. I mean, what I'm blown away by, and JB, this is cool because we've done enough shows now where we can start to really look at all the guests. And Rob, again, we've had everything from Super Bowl champions, Stanley Cup champions, down to recovering drug addicts, and other military members in similar situations. One of the things that amazes me, it amazes me. I look for these congruencies. The people that I meet that have faced the largest adversity, you would be among those people. Find peace in helping others. I'm a hockey player. I coach hockey. I walk into a locker room. I look at these guys in the eye, or these girls in the eye, and I say, we have to go enjoy a hockey game. And someone like you is an example. I'll bring that locker room. This person faced this. Look at how he looks at life as a servant leader, as giving back to other people. We have to go play a hockey game right now. Like, if you can't get up for this game, knowing that there's a human being like that on the planet, I don't know what to tell you. And again, the common trait, even of the recovering drug addicts, they found the journey through helping others. Human beings are meant to help other human beings. I don't know how many years it's going to take us to evolve to get the consciousness to understand that.
Well, we used to understand that. And then I think now we've kind of, when we were cavemen, we understood that what was best for the tribe was best for everybody.
Right.
But yeah,
we don't want to understand it now. We just want to like point fingers and attack and blame, and
that devastates me.
And we can't, Rob, being in a Marine infantry platoon, like the same thing with me and Lee in a hockey locker room. You have people from all different walks of life, and you could argue about like the dumbest things, but you still all work together.
Right.
You could be like, I like the Steelers, I like the Packers, I want to eat vegan, but people would have healthy conversations, and then you would be like, okay, guys, it's time to load up.
But that's the second point, JB. Like,
go fight these guys. Yeah,
that's the other half of it, right? Servant leadership, and as you said, there's a mission. There's a mission that everyone knows that we're following, right? And JB, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just saying that those two things stick out to me. Servant leadership. What can I do for someone next to me? And then the understanding of we're on this mission together. I'm not going to go political here, but we're losing that. We're losing that as a society right now, and it devastates. It's one of the reasons we have this show. Is that we needed, JB and I needed to find people to share this message. And again, Rob, you're like the ultimate example of this. All right. And again, we've had Ben Harrow on, who is a similar situation. We've had other people on, and I'm just blown away. I mean, look, a common person will wake up, like you just said this morning, I woke up and I was like, man, I don't want to work out, but I did it because of people like you is why I do it. Because you know what I mean? Like, it's just not hard to motivate yourself when you know there's people out there that have overcome things. Let me lead this to a question because I'm gonna get off my soapbox here. I'm just so inspired by you. I mean, this is all genuine. Like I'm
Well,
just blown away.
I'll just say one more thing on it, and that, I mean,
Yeah.
having that selfless purpose is what it unlocks your potential. It unlocks our greatest human potential.
Amen.
You
100%.
don't
100%.
dive on a grenade, right? That's like, I would say that's probably the greatest human sacrifice, or the greatest human achievement that you could do, is diving on a grenade or sacrificing your life for another human being. You don't do anything like that without a selfless purpose behind it. You don't go onto the ice hockey rink and get slammed into the boards, sprint back and forth for an hour, do all this different, get in fist fights, all these things that are associated with a hockey game or a football team or whatever. You don't do that for your own, to better yourself. You do that because there's a team around you and everybody's relying on you. And you can take that and you can break that down into what I was talking about, into any moment, at any point when you are having difficulty in any given moment or any given period of time. You fall back on that selfless purpose. Like when you're getting up in the morning and you don't want to work out, then you think about who is relying on me to do this workout. Your kids, your wife, your grandkids that aren't even born yet are relying on you to be around for as long as possible so that they can have a grandpa, they can have a grandma, etc. And that's what makes you forget about not wanting to do the workout. That's what gets you out of bed. And you can use that for anything. I mean, I don't want to go to work today. Well, my family's relying on me to go earn money and do all these different things, and they're relying on me to find something that I enjoy that fulfills me so that I can be a better dad. I can be present, and I'm not, focused on, I'm not feeling depressed, I'm not feeling unfulfilled, and that's going to make me a worse dad, et cetera, et cetera. So you just fall back on that, who the people are in your life that you care about more than yourself, that are relying on you to be successful in any given endeavor, and all the way down to the briefest of moments.
And when that doesn't exist, whether it's individual or sports or whatever, bad things start to happen. Right. And
you're not going to reach your potential.
Yeah, that's a great way. That's actually a better way of wording it.
When you don't think about that, that's what happens. That's when you eat the donut. That's when you roll over and you go back to sleep.
Right.
That's what makes you.
You're 100% right.
Stick in a job that you hate and just keep doing it every single day instead of taking that chance on something that you might enjoy more.
Well, and again, to equate it back to sports, coaches listening, you have to create that purpose in your locker room. And that is your job, in my opinion. I'm saying that as a coach and someone who coaches, your job is to create that purpose, to create that mission, to create that understanding. If you're playing for the person next to you, I have said on many shows that I've been on, the military is the greatest team on the planet. And that is why I admire them so much. I learn more from the military about teamwork than any other team on the planet. I don't care how many Super Bowls Tom Brady's won. When I want to look at a great team, I look at the military. Rob, I got to ask this question too. So, look, you were a driven person before that day, right? This is just who you are. I get the impression, even the way you joined the Marines. The way I read that story of like, I'm just decided to do it. You've always been a driven person. So
I joined before I told my parents and everything.
Right. It's just, you guys, again, you can read his story. It's robjonesjourney.com. Check it out after the episode. But is that something that was present your entire life? Is it something you developed over time? And how do you continually stay consistent with that? Because while it looks like there's probably never been a break, I'm sure that, like you said it earlier, there's times you got to push through and continue. But where did this drive come from?
I had fallen into all these pitfalls we've talking about. I had fallen into those when I was in college before I joined the Marine Corps. Wasn't a good student, and that led me to feel bad about myself. I spent more time playing video games and watching movies than I did studying. I was falling into all these pitfalls that we're talking about. Wasn't enjoying my life, wasn't doing well in school, didn't have a lot of friends. And so I was feeling lonely and I was feeling isolated, and I just felt like my life was not going anywhere. And it was kind of by chance that my only friend at the time that I really had, he was kind of experiencing the same thing. And the year before, he joined the Marine Corps because his dad was a Marine, and he thought that would be a good way for him to kind of turn his life around. And he had just recently graduated boot camp, And so we talked, and I was, I just kind of curious, like, what's he getting himself into? I don't even really know what the Marine Corps is all about. And so I figured I'd go read a book about, I think I went on marines.com or something to see if I could see what my friend was going to be doing. And obviously, marines.com is this incredible place for recruiting people in my position to be Marines. And so it made me kind of curious. I was impressed. They were shooting guns. They looked motivated. They looked like they had a meaning and purpose behind their lives. And so I went down to the library and I got a book. This is the first book that came up when I Googled, or when I searched for books about the Marine Corps at the Virginia Tech Library. It was called Brotherhood of Heroes. And it was about the Battle of Peleliu in World War II and the Marines there. And I read that book, identified that I was missing brotherhood, I was missing courage in my life, I was missing selflessness in my life. And I think I finished the book in maybe 2 days, and maybe a day or two later, I drove down to the recruiter's office and walked in there. Marine Corps recruiter wasn't there. Air Force recruiter tried to get me to go into his office. I said, just call me when the Marine Corps recruiter's back. And I was at MEPS 2 days later. I was at MEPS
Wow.
within a week after finishing that book. So
Wow.
I was at a point where, I had fallen into all these pitfalls. And then, I kind of saw the light as to what I was missing. And that's when, this person that you're talking to was kind of forged through
Wow.
the time.
No,
That's incredible.
And that's
Yeah.
one thing, Rob, that the military does. I joined for the college fund, ended up in the Ranger Regiment, had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was like, I would thought I was on Mars. I'm like, what the hell? I'm a middle class kid from Pittsburgh. And then I saw, from the other side, because I was a drill instructor too. I saw it from that side. And then I was cadre at West Point, and
Yeah.
got to work with, great young men and women there. A couple things that you said I like is that, like, you got out and you started it. And going over your 31 marathons there, that's not easy for you to do. It's not easy for anybody to do. And then you did it on prosthetics and different sizes. And I mean, you had a lot to overcome there. So wasn't like, let me just figure this thing out. But you did, you figured it out as you go. And I think a lot of it is people get stuck in a rut. I remember, teaching officers at West Point, and we were practicing this mission, and they were getting ready to go, and they were just sitting around talking. I'm like, just go. Let's start. And sometimes, that's the hardest thing, just showing up to the gym, just waking up 5 minutes early. Like sometimes you feel like you have to have this huge plan, and maybe you did it in the back of your mind. Maybe you said, maybe I kind of have this, but you had to get going. So maybe just talk our viewers through that. Like just start. Let's move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, in that particular case, I think my plan was go to war, because that was how, go to war with the Marine Corps, because that was how the people in that book that I read, that's how they got all the things that I wanted. That's how they got the brotherhood, the courage, and the selflessness. They went to war and they experienced that brotherhood there, and the mission gave them courage and selflessness. But yeah, what you're saying is, you're talking about people have a tendency to allow themselves to get, paralysis by analysis, and instead of and not realizing that doing something is better than doing nothing. And you can kind of build the plan as you go,
100%.
as long as you get started with a general idea of what you want to do. Like, let's say it's day one in the gym, you've never worked out before in your life. You have that mission of, I want to get in shape, or I want to get bigger muscles, and I want to lose fat tissue. As long as you have that mission, just starting and getting going, it's a lot harder to get an object moving than it is to keep it moving. So the most important thing in the very beginning of a task is just having a general idea of where you want to go, and then getting moving towards that objective. And once you get moving, then you can kind of change direction. but it's a lot harder to get moving than it is to stay
Right.
moving. So number one is just get going. But
Good
yeah,
advice.
you do want to have a general idea of where you're going to be going, because you don't want to go completely out in the opposite direction, then have to change and then go back. So as long as you have that general idea, enough idea to kind of get you moving in the right direction, you know,
But
then I think getting going.
sometimes the path takes you, Rob.
Oh yeah,
Like it takes
it'll
you, like
take you in different.
there's a lot, when I started doing this, like I said, 2005 part-time and then 2010 full-time, like my leadership, mantra has different, has changed a little bit. I'm not Jocko Willenick.
Yeah.
Jocko has his shtick, but guess what? People still come to me for what I give. And so,
Mhm.
Sometimes you think you have to be stuck in that, like everything's a firefight. Well, it's not, and that's not my thing. And it's taken me to advancement, but you learn that over time. And then you have some mentors that pop in and say, hey, you know what? This part of your briefing was really good. I think, and then you start to change your mind, but you got going. And that's the
Yeah,
most
completely.
important part.
Yeah, the path is almost guaranteed to take you in a different direction than you originally thought. I mean, that's almost guaranteed to happen. Say you want to,
Right.
you're starting
You're
working
writing a
out.
book. You're writing a book. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting
Right?
to, you're working out, and you think, all right, well, in order to lose weight, I need to run. And then you start running, and you realize, oh, you know what? I might actually enjoy more is cycling. And
Right.
then you go and you do cycling, and then maybe you see something else, like, oh, you know what? I was on my bike today and I saw these guys rowing on on the river. I think maybe rowing might be, I think. So it's almost guaranteed to take you in different directions. And then, yeah, you will, like you said, you're going to have influences along the way, mentors, maybe enemies that come along.
100%. Haters are going to hate, Rob.
Hate, yeah, you might, yeah, and they're going to kind of influence you in different directions. Or you might read a book about, you might be a big time runner, and then you read a book about a guy riding his bike across the country, and you go, dang, that sounds really cool. Might want to do that. And so you do that. So yeah, the path is meandering. It can be perfectly straight, but most of the time it's going to be meandering, and you're just going towards that final objective. That's why it's so important to have that 40,000 foot view of what you're trying to do, because only with that view can you allow the path to meander. So
Right.
if you start working out and you say, I'm going to run, I'm a runner, that's how I'm going to get, and that's concrete asphalt path, then you're going to, you're going to get 3 months, you might get 3 months in and you got a stress fracture in your shin.
Right.
You're like running all hobbled, but you keep doing it because that's what you think that you have to do, and you decided to do it. And I'm a person that's, I do what I decide to do. Whereas if you have that 40,000 foot view, I just want to be healthy, and I want to lose some weight, and I want to do like a physical activity on a daily basis that I enjoy. That's what allows you to go, maybe running isn't my thing, maybe rowing is my thing, maybe cycling is my thing, swimming, so many different things as you can do.
Yeah, it's like pasta for the hockey pregame meal, Lee. It's
Yeah.
like
Right.
Rob, it's like the worst thing, but hockey players are like, I need pasta for
Yeah.
my pregame
Somebody
meal. I'm
told
like,
me to eat that. Right.
and I'm like, that's the absolute worst thing for pregame. And why
Well,
do they
athletes,
why do they serve it? Because
Yeah.
it's cheap.
they have their ways. Athletes have their superstitions and their habits, and it
Oh, you
definitely
do in the
is hard to
military
change
too.
those.
Come on, you
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody, people. I guess I should say people have their habits and that kind of thing. So.
Here's something I want to say, Rob, you brought up. You talked about that straight line of the goal and the dangers of that. Here's the deal, and this is something I'm realizing about you. When you have a goal in mind or a journey in mind, if you focus only on achieving the goal and you try and take a straight line, and that becomes your identity, as you said, you're threatening your existence, because something is going to happen to derail you on that path. Even if you think there's a straight line, and look, maybe in life there are some straight lines, but in my experience, it's very rare, right? Something's going to derail you. So I always say, and this is something I tell JB is always saying, we climb. And I told him this, in the early days when I knew him, I said, yeah, climb towards the goal. And then I realized now it's really more about just enjoying the climb. Whether you reach the goal or not, the peak of the mountain, like you said, the peak of the mountain, we can all look to the peak. I can get good on it, but like you said, a 40,000 foot view. Look at the whole mountain. Look at the different views. Or you gave this great analogy before that I thought was brilliant. You know, look, if I-70 is closed, you got to find a way to I-80 across the country. You got to figure it out, right? There's plenty of roads. But if you're only focused on, I have to take this road, again, coaches, athletes, listen up. This is for you. I have to take this road. As soon as the road's closed, you're done. And you got to know there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of ways. And it might take longer, and it might be a boring view, or it might be up a mountain. But the point is, if you want to get to the destination, you're going to do the work. And here's the thing. Like, I grew up in a city, man. I thought the cities was best life. I worked in New York City. I went up to northern British Columbia, near Alaska. Never been anywhere like that. Beautiful. And I'm thinking, my God, I've been so focused on making it in the city. I didn't even take a moment to enjoy this unbelievable beauty. It changed my life, right? Other things too. You mentioned Pele, Lou. Again, everybody listening, if you want a pretty good, documentary or cinematic documentary, obviously the Pacific on HBO did something about that. Band of Brothers is always recommended viewing, keeping in mind that 10 episodes of something can never summate what these men went through. I always say in Saving Private Ryan, my dad told me this, again, not to derail this, but I remember we watched Saving Private Ryan when I was young. And I actually look back thinking my father, I watched that when I was probably younger than I should have been. But he said to me afterwards, I'll never forget this. He goes, that was 40 minutes on the film. That took all day. That event was a day, not 40 minutes, 24 hours, and then same thing with Pele, Lou. It was months, right?
6 weeks, I think. Yeah.
It was
brutal.
It was months. It was brutal.
To go 6 miles.
Exactly. Right. And again, we get this in a couple episodes and you can get an idea, but like you said, even from the book. So my point is, the reason I'm bringing these things up, coaches, athletes, there are examples of hardship, immense hardship, where not everybody survives. And you have to look to those and bring these stories and bring these examples in your locker room, not to upset your team, but as examples of greatness, examples of human spirit. Right. That's the stuff I try and capture in a bottle on these shows, Rob, because again, and this is going to lead me to this next question, that as humans, we just do not know what we're truly capable of. And that is the journey that I find so amazing, right? If I have, I'm blessed, man, I got a lot of things in my life, a lot of passions that I love, but I'm so fascinated with this. We do not understand what we're capable of. It's why in the Olympics every 4 years, world Olympic records are broken. We continue to get better. You've proved this many times over now, all right, with what you've accomplished, that we don't know our limits. What is your view on how far we can go?
We can go as far as we think we can, is kind of the one sentence. Right. I mean, and this example gets used all the time, but breaking the 4-minute mile, right, was this common belief that it couldn't be done
Your
until
heart would break, would burst.
Yeah.
They thought,
yeah. Or Mount Everest was unclimbable.
Right.
You
can't fly. People can't fly. Yeah.
It requires somebody to see beyond that groupthink, or to see beyond those limitations, and it's not even necessarily thinking that you absolutely can do a certain thing. It's just being open to the possibility that everything goes perfectly according to plan, then it might be done. So Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, I think, was the Sherpa that he had with him. At the bottom of Everest, they were probably thinking, we don't know what's going to happen. Right. We don't know if we're going to be able to get to the top of this mountain. We may die trying to do this. There have been plenty of people that have. But if the weather is perfect, if the route that we picked is perfect, if we had all of our supplies picked out just right, and if all of our equipment doesn't break, and as long as our bodies are in the right shape that they need to be, and they can withstand this stress, then we're going to get to the top and we're going to climb back down. But they didn't know for sure that they were going to be able to do that, but they just had the belief that it is possible. If all these things fall perfectly into place, then it could possibly happen. They just had that little part of their brain that believed that maybe it could happen. I'm not sure. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but maybe it could happen. And then as they started climbing up the mountain, they got closer and closer. Well, then that belief started to shift. Like, it started out as maybe if everything goes perfectly to, hey, maybe we can actually do this. Oh, dang, we're getting pretty close. Maybe it can. Right. Shoot, we reached the top. Now we just have to get down. So, it shifted throughout the course of them climbing that mountain, and until they, the last mile,
But
they were
that's the
like, we
key.
did it.
That's the key to what you were saying, right? There wasn't a straight path. They figured it out. They believed. One of my favorite. You brought
That
up the
wasn't their
4 minute
first
mile.
try either.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Like it might not happen the first try. One of my favorite stories about the 4 minute mile, probably, when Roger Bannister did that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't focus on that story. It's not that he did it, but that the second under 4 minute mile happened months or weeks later. Because they saw Roger Bannister do it and they said, you know what, I can do that. Right now, the cool quote from that was, and you remember his name, right? The person who ran the second under 4 minute mile. And then the guy goes, I don't either. You know what I mean? Which is a great point. The point is when people do things like this, and you alluded to this earlier, among your mind when you were recovering, obviously your family, but other Marines need to see me doing this. Right. And I'm sure you had examples as well of other people who had been through similar things. We don't know what we're capable of, but dare to dream, dare to be great. That was a quote that was told me at one point that I really held to my heart. And I think you're right. If you can dream it, it can happen. Look, I'm a little bit of a geek. People don't give Star Trek enough credit for what that's created. Like modern space travel almost always references Star Trek as, well, I didn't think about it until I saw the Starship Enterprise and, going to space, we don't know what we're capable of. And again, I didn't mean to stop you, but you're right about Everest too, man. It's just like, until you do it,
it's the same philosophy.
Know.
Yeah. And so I'll give you 2 examples where that was really helpful for me. I think John Landy was the second guy to break the 4 minute mile. Anyway.
Yeah. You're probably right.
Later. Yeah. He was in the top. Anyway.
Yeah.
When I first got to therapy, I was a double above knee amputee, just got to physical therapy, still in a wheelchair. My dad was living with me as my non-medical caretaker to make sure I didn't, die or anything. I got into the clinic on day 1, and I look around the clinic and I see this guy come in that's a double above knee amputee like me, not in a wheelchair. He's walking on 2 prosthetic legs.
Wow.
He's by himself. He doesn't have a non-medical caretaker. He's independent. He's self-reliant. He's self-confident. Confidently, he has his big backpack on. He walks in, puts his backpack down, goes and picks up some dumbbells, lifts them up over his head, does some exercises, does some push-ups. And his name was Dan Knassen. He was a Navy SEAL. And he'd probably been there about a year longer than I had. And he was immediately became my idol, my amputee idol in the clinic, because he was doing everything that I wanted to be able to do. And so, like you're saying, when you see somebody else doing it, then it immediately kind of shows you what a possible future for yourself.
Right.
Obviously you then still have to do the work and figure out how to do it and all this stuff, but you're seeing what is possible for you. Right. And then when I started to learn how to ride a bicycle, it had never been done by anybody that, no double above knee amputee at Walter Reed had ever learned how to ride a regular bicycle by themselves, not even Dan. So Dan was working on it. He never figured it out before he retired. And so I kind of took up from where he left off, and we figured it out. And part of the reason that I was able to do that was because there was one double above knee amputee that was riding a bicycle. His name was Rudy Garcia Tolson, and he'd been a double above knee amputee since he was 5 years old, and he could ride a bike. So I knew it was possible because I saw this other guy do it. He could, if he could do it, then it's possible. It's possible for me to be able to do it. So just opening up that possibility in your mind gives you the leeway to go into that possibility.
Wow. And again, just to equate it back to sports, using the severity of what you're talking about into the very comfortable, sports locker room, coaches, athletes, you want to talk about accountability on the field of play, right? If one player sees another player or a leader being accountable, hey, do that extra rep. Hey, get to the line. Hey, hit in your rebound. You're naturally going to see more players do it. If you don't have that, it won't happen. And again, the other part of it is the evolution. What was his name again? I'm sorry, your amputee, the person that
Dan Knassen.
Dan Knassen comes in and gives you a path, and you evolve it. And I'm sure there was someone that came in a year later and saw you. It was like, wow, Rob Jones.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Amazing.
I was riding a bike and I saw the people watching me, and I was like, you know what? Dan's gone. I've been here a year longer than a lot of these newer amputees. I'm kind of the new Dan in a way, or I can be. I have this opportunity to try and be the new Dan and show these other amputees what's possible for them. And then that pulls in the selflessness that I've been talking about, where now I sort of have this responsibility to them to make sure I learn how to ride this bike and I do everything I can. They'd be always challenging us with different races to do. Like every time the therapist asked me if I wanted to do a race, I'd be like, yep, because I knew I had that responsibility to kind of set a standard and show and open up possibilities for other amputees that were in the clinic. And then, with sports too, you're having trouble transitioning away from your sport because you were injured. Well, how many hundreds of athletes have done what you're trying to do? Got injured, or their career ended early, or their career ended exactly where they wanted it to, and they had to find a new, meaningful purpose in life.
We had a guest on that went from hockey to professional golf. I mean, it was an amazing transition that he was able to do.
Or you go from hockey to the business world, or whatever the case may be.
That's
people have transitioned, and so it's possible. You just have to figure out. You have to find the right mentors, find the right help, and figure out how to do it. So, but it's possible because there's been plenty of people that have done it. So
absolutely. JB, I'm going to throw it to you. I do want to confirm John Landy was the second under 4 minute mile.
He was.
Rob. I just want to let you know you got that right.
Rob Jones.
Go ahead, JB.
No, you just have to keep looking. It's Rob would tell you when you're doing these military road marches, they say, "Hey, don't look down. There's nothing down there, right? Like you got to keep looking at the top of the mountain."
Right. Yeah, that's right.
You got to keep looking up, looking at top.
But then sometimes the top of the mountain's too far, so you have to look at the road.
Yeah, well, you gotta look
in front of you, right? But you're right. Look, you guys are right. These metaphors are so important for sports. I know so many athletes get in ruts. It's like just take a step forward. It's so hard to do when your mind is in the way. But look again, Rob, you're saying, and JB, I'm sorry, I'm kind of
you're good.
Jumping in. It's just like, how can you get out of a rut? Guys, I'll tell you this, whenever I'm feeling really down, it happens. We all have issues with mental fitness from time to time. I look to help someone because I know it's going to jumpstart my engine a little bit. So when I'm feeling really crappy, I try and find someone to help just because I know it's going to do something to turn me in a different direction. Or JB, with what you're saying, it gets my head to look up, right? Because, if there's a metaphor for feeling depressed, it's looking down, right? But if I look around and get my head up. So JB, so I'll throw it to you. The theme of this episode, Rob, outside your unbelievable drive is that servant leadership is a pathway towards a better journey. Go ahead, JB. Apologies.
No, not at all. It's just it's so important what you're doing, Rob. Like you're inspiring people through your actions, through example, and then just giving people the ability to think differently. And you're exactly right. People look at something and be like, man, he can do that. I can do that, or I can figure it out. And that's exactly what you did. And a lot of times it's that. And Lee, I agree with you. It's being able to help others that brings people that purpose, right? And a lot of times military athletes, they lose that sense of purpose when you switch.
I should say this
gears.
too, JB, and both of you exemplify this. It's helping others without expecting anything in return. I think that's also part of the problem. People, well, I helped you. That's not the point. I'm not helping other people expecting something. Yeah, like the selfless.
You're gonna get stuff. You're gonna get something
for sure
out of it.
I know a lot of business professionals that help you, but they want something in return.
Yeah,
and I'm like, whatever.
That's not my MO.
That's the people I never. That's the people I never ask.
Right. Well, that's the point. Yeah.
I don't got time. I don't got time for that. Rob, there's a Go ahead, Rob.
Oh no, I was just going to bring it back to what you're talking about, looking at the mountain versus looking in front of you, and I think that's kind of an important topic to cover because there's a clear sports analogy there too, where this baseball season, I'm a baseball fan, so 162 game season, that's a long ass time to be focusing on.
Right.
So that's why a lot of the times you hear the teams talking about, we're just going to focus on this game. We're going to focus on this series because it's too big of a goal to think about. But then ultimately, they're also going to have strategies over the course of these series and these games. They're managing their pitchers, they're managing their players so that they can make it through that entire season. So you have to simultaneously have that long-term, big, selfless goal that you're working towards, climbing to the top of the mountain, but you also have to have these short-term milestones that you're trying to reach, and then the key is to know when you need to focus on the mountain, when you need to focus on the next step or the next mile or what have you. So when I was on the monthly marathons, if I had to think about running 31 marathons back to back,
Never would have
that's
done
a
it,
big
yeah.
goal. So I would say, okay, well, I'm just going to run this marathon. But even then, that sometimes would be, God, I have to run 26.2 miles today. Dang. So I would just focus on the next block of running that I had to do.
Right.
Usually it was only 12 kilometers at a time. But even that sometimes would feel like a long way to have to go. So I would have to focus on the next mile. But even that sometimes, and then so I break it all the way down, just take the next step or just take the next, whatever. So it's being able to cycle between these various milestones that you're trying to reach to find the one that is going to be driving you forward. So when you're on a long journey, it can just seem so far away. When you're in the very beginning or in the middle of it, it can seem so far away. So that's when you focus on the close goal to drive you forward. But then any given moment can also be really, really difficult. Like I had in the last 4 marathons, I had a back injury.
Yeah.
And so every step was just this excruciating step that I had to take. And I knew every time I did it, I was going to feel this shock of pain go up my back, and it was going to be terrible. So that's when I focused on that bigger goal that I was on, because that's where the strength, the discipline, the fortitude, because I have this huge, extremely important, selfless goal that I'm trying to reach. That's where, when you're in any given moment, when you're having difficulty, focusing on that and gathering the strength from that selfless purpose, that's what gets you through the small moments. So it's like you're changing your focus back and forth as you need to, based on the struggles that you're experiencing in any given moment.
I love it. Love it. Back to you, Lee.
Thanks. Sorry. I'm blown away.
He was so good. I got it. My question doesn't even fit that. That was
no,
that was
Rob,
so
again,
good.
we're talking about, you're dropping diamonds, man. This is
Thanks, man.
The next question was actually about selfless leadership, but I think you just answered it. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. But, mental fitness, we were talking about this, and you just talked about mental fortitude. It's something we all need to practice and something we all have bouts with at times. We use the word mental fitness here because we like to equate it to physical fitness. We think they're equally as important, and we think you need to do as much work on your mind as you're doing on your body. So, with this entire episode in your life in mind, how do you define mental fitness? How do you continually practice it? Is it like a professional athlete with their sport where, you're constantly practicing this even when idle, because, it's something that needs to be on all the time. Right. So how do you define mental fitness? How do you practice it? And what advice do you have to the listeners?
Well, I would say mental fitness isn't a whole lot different from physical fitness, in that in physical fitness, if you're physically fit, then your body is able to do the task that you want it to do. Right. So if you're physically fit for running, then your body can go run whatever distance you want to as fast as possible. If you're fit for baseball, then you can do the tasks associated with baseball. If you're fit for hockey, you can do that. So it's different fitnesses.
Right.
Somebody fit for running isn't necessarily going to be fit for baseball or necessarily be fit for hockey. So I would say mental fitness is basically the same thing. Your mind has the qualities that you need it to have in order to do what you're trying to do with your life. In the same exact way that your body needs to be fit for your task, your mind needs to be fit for the task of, whatever you're trying to do, but then also just life in general. So that's also a facet of physical fitness too. You want to have a healthy body. Usually, a lot of the times when you're training, like for the Olympics, you're sacrificing a healthy body for a body that can perform in a certain way. But that's what I would say is what mental fitness is just having a mind that can do what you need it to do, in terms of daily life and larger goals for yourself. And yeah, it's something just like with physical fitness. It is something that you have to work on every day. Maybe not every single moment of every day, but the more you work on it, the better you're going to be.
Right. Becomes consistent.
You need rest physically, you need rest mentally, but it's something that you have to continuously work on. And a lot of the times with physical fitness, you have to go and set up scenarios that are going to make your body stronger. So you're not going to get stronger by walking around. You can get stronger by you purposefully go to the gym and you put weights on the squat bar and you squat, or you do whatever your workout is. You're purposefully creating that scenario so that you're going to do it, and then your body's going to react to that. So there's no different with your brain and with your mind. You have to identify scenarios where you have the opportunity to make your mind stronger and then go down that path. So if there's a donut in front of you, that's an opportunity. That's like going to the gym for your mind. You have a stress. The stress is, I want to eat the donut and I know I shouldn't. So if I eat the donut, then that's the equivalent to not picking up the squat bar and doing some squats. If you don't eat the donut, then that's the equivalent of grabbing that squat bar and doing a set of 10.
Right.
So it's more difficult to see the opportunities for the mental workout than it is the physical workout, because it's, you go to the gym and that's what you do. But you have to be aware of those opportunities and then take them. Then also set up opportunities for yourself. So like if you're supposed to go for a run today and it's raining, purposefully go, or maybe if you're even not supposed to go for a run today, maybe you're supposed to go to the gym, it's raining, maybe see that as a possibility, an opportunity to go out there and run in the rain,
Right.
to give yourself some extra strength. Create these scenarios for yourself where you're going to have to do a little mental workout in order to get through it. Try and conquer a mental weakness that you have so that you'll become stronger. So sign up for a marathon, or sign up to, if you're afraid of public speaking, sign up to go do a speech somewhere, things like that. So try and create you have to create these mental challenges that are going to make your mind stronger, just like you have to create them
Right.
in the gym for your body. It's no different.
I'll add on to that too, is that, and this is something that's coming to light with mental fitness, is you have to first be conscious that you need to make a change. One of the things about physical fitness is you can look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm out of shape. It kind of immediately creates that goal. I think with mental fitness, we're as a society, we're not at a point yet where people are going, wow, I'm really not at a good place mentally. And I need to make a change. And as you said, that donut analogy is actually really perfect, right? I think people see the donut and there's not even a thought of, maybe I shouldn't do that. It's just, oh, I will feel better if I eat this. So that consciousness, that awareness of, hey, I need to work on my mental fitness. And then again, bringing in what JB said, what you said, understanding that, look, this is a mountain to climb. You are not going to be mentally fit in one day any more than you're going to be physically fit after one day at the gym. It takes time. You need a goal. You need a journey it's worth following. And then you got to put the time in. And that's part of the mental fortitude. And you have to be aware that your mind is going to try and play tricks on you. Yeah, but if I eat that donut, I'll feel great for 10 seconds. Yes, be aware of that. that's something that small. You said this, Rob, something that small can be the mental challenge, that the first little, peak to jump over. Right. And then maybe tomorrow it's something else. Go ahead.
When you go into so this feeds back into one of the common themes of mental struggle, is that physical struggle is seen as valid because we can see it. So in the military, and probably in sports too, the physical injury is seen as legitimate, whereas a lot of times the mental injury by the person that gets the mental injury is not seen as legitimate because it's this invisible thing. And so look at it like this: when you go into the gym and you get a heavy weight on the squat bar, or you get a heavy weight on the bench press, and you get a third of the way up and you're stuck, what do? So, spot, you ask for a spot and somebody runs over. They do the one finger. That's all they ever do. They go, ooh, and they listen. That's all they're doing, is just giving you that barely just a little bit of a spot.
Right.
So sometimes you're going to face challenges in the mental workouts where you need a spot. And we don't see that because it's kind of this invisible thing, and it's intangible. And so, but there are going to be times where you're facing a challenge where you're going to need a spot. And it's no different from when you're in the gym and you need a spot. It's the same legitimacy. You have a certain level of strength and you're faced with a weight that you can't quite lift at that time. And nobody looks down on you for doing that, because you're actually trying to lift that heavier weight. Everybody thinks that's awesome. Like, good on you for trying to lift that heavy weight. Whereas in the mental game, for some reason, we don't see it the same way a lot of the times. But it's the same exact thing. Your mind at any given point has the capability to withstand a certain amount of stress, a certain type of stress. And when it can't, then you need a spot. And that's talking to a friend, that's talking to a therapist or a counselor, or doing any number of things that gives you that spot. Or maybe just trying to find out about somebody else that did a certain thing. Like, I didn't necessarily believe that I could ride a bike at first until I saw Rudy Garcia Tolson do it. That's getting a spot for me in that challenge. And so it's the same exact thing with that too. Getting help in the gym, it's the same thing as getting help in your mind, in your mental gym. Sometimes you need a spot.
Wow.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
That's an incredible analogy. And JB, it's embarrassing that we never used that.
I love it.
I'm going to close it out in a minute, but Rob, I got to tell you, it's people like you, it's people like JB for me, that you're my spots all the time, whether you realize it or not. The men and women that serve, I just, whenever I have a moment of, I don't want to do this, I think about all of you. You can get out of bed, you can go jog in the rain. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's been like that since a very, very young time in my life. So I want to thank you, and JB, you as well, obviously, just for your service and your volunteer. And I want you to know, you inspire me. You guys inspire me daily. And as a person on this planet, I just want to share that with everybody that wants to hear it, because that's why we do this podcast, man. People need to know, we need this in our lives right now, but you're an amazing person, man. And I'll tell you, we didn't even get into the marathons and the bike ride. By the way, those stories are out there if you want to see them. Obviously, robjonesjourney.com.
They're awesome.
There's going to be a book coming out, as you said, at some point.
There's a reason that my first draft of my book was 750 pages.
Wow.
There's a reason that a reason that I've been on, Jocko 3 times, and there's 8 hours of content, about my life's journey. It takes a while to get to it all. And then also add in the philosophical lessons that you learn along the way. So it's a big subject. It's really hard to get down into 1 hour.
Well, listen, I appreciate the snippet of time you gave us today. I learned a ton.
I appreciate it.
And JB, anything before I close it out, buddy?
No, Rob, you're amazing. You're amazing. You're an amazing warrior and leader.
Thanks, brother.
And you're inspiring folks. So keep after it. I love it.
Do the same.
All right. That's going to do it for this amazing episode of Win Championship Trades for Life. Again, we're powered by Pivotal Moments Media. Check us out at pivotalmomentsmedia.com. You can click on the Grit channel for more content like this. So for Rob Jones and JB Spizzo, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us. Keep an eye out for more episodes wherever podcasts can be heard. Thanks for listening to Win, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to this edition of Win Championship Trades for Life. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button or that like button wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, pivotalmomentsmedia.com. And remember, Win is part of Grit, a Pivotal Moments Media channel, which is working to break the stigma surrounding mental fitness in sports. Again, visit pivotalmomentsmedia.com for more episodes, content, and education on how we can tackle that challenge together. Keep climbing, and we'll see you on the next episode.